everybody. Matt here from Matt's Movies, Music and More, and my special guest Andrew, welcoming you to this special episode of What Did You Think? And do you know why it's special?
No, why it's special?
Because I can't say it in that way as Noddy Holder may sue me, but it's Christmas.
Really?
Yeah.
It's Christmas?
It's Christmas.
You wouldn't know that looking around here.
No,
no
trees.
So let me try and rectify that.
I'm glad you put in the effort.
Thank you. Can you see it?
Yes, I think we can see it. So, if you saw last year for our very first Christmas special on What Did You Think, we covered two Christmas classics, really up there amongst the great Christmas films.
A very loose definition of the word classic.
Yes, if you get a chance to check it out, be sure to do so. And that was the double bill of Silent Night, Deadly Night 1 and 2, which was the Killer Santa Claus movies.
If you've ever seen the meme "Garbage Day" on the internet, that's where it's from.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yes. So this year we're going to rectify it with another real Christmas classic.
Okay, so I'm hoping after that little unpleasantness last year that we have a more wholesome, more traditional Christmas movie.
Maybe.
So. It's a Wonderful Life.
No.
Either of the Miracle on 34th Street.
No.
Arthur Christmas.
No.
Ernest Saves Christmas.
Should have picked that one, shouldn't I? But no, sadly not.
Okay, you've stumped me.
Right, it's another anniversary title, I'm afraid. 35 years ago this year.
Of course it's an anniversary.
So it's 1984, and the movie we are doing is Gremlins.
As a Christmas, wishing everybody a happy, safe Christmas.
Yes.
I don't even know you sometimes.
So we are doing the 1984 movie Gremlins, which is directed by Joe Dante, and it stars in the main roles Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, and Hoyt Axton as Randall Peltzer. Now, with Gremlins, there was a sequel, Gremlins 2. Now, if you saw on the Christmas special last year, we did Silent Night, Deadly Night 1 and 2.
Oh, no.
But as Gremlins 2 is not a Christmas movie, we will not be covering that in this review.
Oh, thank you, sweet Santa
This is just the first movie. So, Gremlins. Now, I know for a fact that the pair of us, I'd seen it loads of times, and you've seen it loads of times. But the question I've got to ask is, when was the last time you saw Gremlins, the movie?
Probably like 3 or 4 years ago, surfing through the channels, and obviously it's either somebody dedicates an entire channel to Christmas movies, or it just happens to be on because they'll show anything at Christmas.
I think for me it's probably about close to 10 years since I last saw the movie. Because again...
Oh, I'll tell you, my first memory of seeing Gremlins, that I'll get out here while we're discussing it. When it came to doing my GCSE, my first academic course on media studies and films, and you have to watch a particular film or a particular sequence and discuss the tracking shots with the what is it trying to convey, what's the dialogue, hidden meanings, blah blah blah. Duel, the Steven Spielberg killer truck movie Duel, was the first movie I ever did for something like that. The opening 5 minutes of Gremlins was the second.
Wow. And
certainly for years afterwards, because this is before the credits, so I didn't know what is this movie? What's Mogwai? Who's this Chinese person? And is Mogwai the name of the movie? And maybe filing that to the back of my brain and not thinking about it, and then by pure chance stumbling across, because the teacher didn't say what movie this was from. He just said, watch this, what do you think about it? And that was a real jigsaw piece. Hang on, that movie I saw back in 1997.
It does start very strange.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like the same movie until the credits start, because when I saw it as a kid, we haven't even got into it yet, but can I just say that I think that particular scene, when I saw it, it's supposed to be based in Chinatown in America, but I actually thought it was in China.
Yeah.
And that Randall Peltzer, who is the guy who is the main character's father, but he also is narrating the film at the beginning and the end of the film.
Yeah.
But he's in Chinatown, looking around in like antique stores and stuff like that, because he's looking for the perfect gift for his son Billy, isn't it?
For Christmas.
Yeah.
I'll
let you take over.
Yeah, firstly I'll say, I'll get this out of the way right now. Yeah, like you say, it's its own self-contained little scene in terms of atmosphere and setting compared to the other 103 minutes that this movie takes up. And also because this is the result of doing this show with you for a year, seeing so many different movies. Watching it now, I got major Big Trouble in Little China flashbacks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it was the 80s. There were a lot of these films coming out that were mixing the Chinese cultures.
What is it about 80s movies and mixing Oriental Chinese culture? I was about to say Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, but that's India. That's into a completely different...
But I still saw that same similarity.
Yeah. Anyway, you want me to do my little plot summary thing?
Yes,
well,
please.
Firstly, before we do it, can I get this hat off?
Yes, at least he tried.
Yeah, I tried. The movie starts out with, you think you've heard stories? Well, you haven't heard a story like mine. Randall Peltzer is a struggling inventor. He comes up with all kinds of crazy gizmos, wrong word, inventions that come out throughout the movie, but they always break down after 2 weeks or something. Ha ha ha. He's wandering around Chinatown looking for something for his son Billy for Christmas, and going into this mysterious downstairs antique shop owned by Mr. Wing. Yeah, Mr. Wing. As around the back of the shop, he hears this singing, and he sees this creature, this furry creature in a bowl. Yeah. Wow, that's lovely. Oh, I've never seen anything like this before. How much for it? $100. No, Mogwai not for sale. It could be Mogwai bring great responsibility. You can't have it. But his grandson's like, grandfather's crazy, we need the money. I'll just sneak it out the back of the shop when he's not looking and you have it. But look, sir, you need to if you're going to own this Mogwai creature, you need to follow 3 basic rules. And it's funny how he says this, and we see examples of this as the shot continues. Firstly, no light, no bright light, no sunlight, because that will kill him, just as flashlights are going off in the scene. And secondly, the
second one is be sure not to get him wet.
Never get him wet, just as Randall Peltzer steps in a puddle. And the third one you must never forget, no matter how much it begs, just as he walks past a beggar on the street. Never feed him after midnight. Sure, kid, have a Merry Christmas. And opening credits, we're now into the proper setting of this movie. Bedford Falls. Oh, I'm sorry, Kingston Falls. This isn't It's a Wonderful Life, but it is very much like Bedford Falls. It's a pretty little American town. Old-fashioned American town, except for that Burger King over there, because we needed to get sponsorship into this movie somehow. That everyone knows each other, the police, the neighbour, the shop owner, blah blah blah. And Christmas is coming up, and everyone's getting into the festive spirit, except Mrs. Deagle, who's clearly the Scrooge of this town. But our focus is on the Peltzers. The father we've already met, the mother, and Billy Peltzer, who works in the bank, not well liked by the junior vice executive of the bank, who does say, the owner wants to keep you on, but when I become the owner of this bank, you're out of here.
Billy from Beverly Hills Cop, who is actually the great Judge Reinhold.
Judge Reinhold. But it gets a gift, gets the Mogwai, who quickly called Gizmo, and oh, isn't he cute and sweet? But those 3 rules, it's kind of like Chekhov's gun. If you introduce the 3 rules of don't expose him to light, or don't pour water on him, or don't feed him after midnight, you can guess either through ignorance, mainly ignorance or sheer accident, those 3 rules are going to get broken, and that means the Mogwai Gizmo is going to writhe in pain and multiply, and those gremlins aren't going to be as friendly and cute and harmless as Gizmo. And what is that going to mean for the town? Chaos. That's what it's going to mean. Will Billy or his family or his girlfriend or any of the townspeople get out of this alive? Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes, and you mentioned It's a Wonderful Life earlier. That plays in the film.
It plays in the film, yeah.
One of many, I suppose, what we would call them now as Easter eggs, but back in the
references.
Yeah, in the 80s, obviously with this movie, there are so many references to other things. Like, can I throw out there is a scene in the movie which is sort of near to the end, probably about 20 minutes prior to the end, which is where Randall is at like a science, it's like an inventors kind of meeting. Yeah. And in the background, you've got Robbie the robot from Lost in Space or Forbidden Planet. You've got the time machine, which when it cuts back from him going back to the phone call he's having and then goes back, the time machine's disappeared. And there's also even a cameo appearance there from Steven Spielberg riding along in a bike, I think, as well.
Yeah. Is it a real blink and you'll miss it moment, though?
Kind of, yes. But right, let's start with the movie, anyways. That I kind of want to start off with the thing that you said at the beginning when you made your reference to It's a Wonderful Life regarding the town, which is Kingston Falls in the movie. What is it called in It's a Wonderful Life?
Bedford Falls.
Do you know
Merry Christmas, Bedford Falls! Merry Christmas, you wonderful liquor store!
Yeah, that's the same scene that's in the movie. But do you know what this town is as well? And it looks exactly the same, just a few tweaks here and there. And given it came out a year later, same producer, Steven Spielberg, Hill Valley. So if you watch Back to the Future, you will see similarities between the 2 towns.
Yeah, and also another put-upon male hero protagonist.
Yes. But I wanted to throw that out there. The next bit I wanted to throw out, before we even get into the main characters, is this story has so many layers of characters that could easily have their own spin-offs, because there's so many characters. And I'm so glad you covered Mrs. Deagle, because I was going to say, is this the Christmas Carol contribution to this movie, given that she is the Scrooge-like person who has taken over the whole town?
There's, please, Mrs. Deagle, please give us a loan for Christmas. Yeah. Well, now you know what to ask Santa for, don't you, kids?
Because her husband's been laid off by Mrs. Deagle because she bought the company or whatever like that, and I like that, but it's like when Mrs. Deagle eventually gets her comeuppance. It's like
in a different movie, she would have been the villain, or would have found the true meaning of Christmas or something. But once the Gremlins arrive, she's a casualty. She's a silly, cartoony, comedic casualty.
Which, for me, when I watched it again recently to do this review, that was the biggest laugh I had.
Because she deserved it.
Yes, because she deserved it. I think everyone who watched it back in the cinema back in 1984 would have probably all been like, yeah! You know, but it's so interesting seeing so many of these actors in this film, so many little parts here and there. But we'll start off with the main actor, Zach Galligan, who plays Billy Peltzer. When you said at the beginning that Randall wants to get a present for his son Billy, we forget to say that Billy is actually a late teen, early 20-something, who's still living at home with his mum and dad.
Yeah, but thank you for providing that visual reference. Yeah, sorry to mention it. But watching that, clip on its own back in 1997, you would assume, oh, he's like a 5-year-old boy. But,
yeah. Do you think that would have worked if it had been a kid?
Rather
than him being a sort of young adult.
Would a kid have been able to fend off the gremlins? Would we have had a strong...
Well, given that we have Corey Feldman playing Pete, who is kind of Billy's friend, although that is a weird friendship there.
You do get that covered.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a small town, everyone knows each other.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing, you've got that. You've got the fact that he works in the bank. He's clearly the breadwinner of the family, because obviously Randall is believing that he is the one that's making all the decisions because he's the inventor, and the whole kitchen is full of Peltzer inventions.
Automatic orange squeezer or coffee maker or telephone, all of which don't work.
Yes.
Or squirt out liquids to comedic effect.
But Hoyt Axton, who plays Randall, he's never shot down like, oh, it's broken. He's like, oh no, that's okay.
No, he's ever the optimist. He's going to the convention because he's convinced he's going to sell his newest item.
Yes, but Zach Galligan. I mean, this is his most famous movie. Another franchise that he's been in besides Gremlins is Waxwork. You ever seen Waxwork?
No.
Waxwork is a horror film that came out in the late 80s. There was 2 movies, Waxwork and the 1991 sequel, Waxwork 2, which was also known as Lost in Time, which for me is my favourite of the 2 Waxworks movies, and I hope one day we might cover that at some point, as it's such a funny horror comedy.
Yeah.
But what do you think of his performance in this movie?
He was likeable. He's the very definition of a sweet, likeable young teenage boy. He's trying to get by. He's got dreams of being a comic artist or a comic writer.
Did you see the reference there? He's showing his drawings to someone in the bar who happens to be none other than Looney Tunes animator Chuck Jones.
Oh, that's clever.
And that's why he says Mr. Jones.
Oh, that's clever.
Do you remember that scene?
That's clever. I know he was talking to some guy because he'd done a drawing of Mrs. Beagle as a dragon or something.
Yeah, it was Chuck Jones.
Oh, that's clever, that.
Yes. But no, he's great in the movie, and the relationship between himself and the main actress in the film as well, which is Phoebe Cates, who plays Kate. Kate works in the bank, but as a part-time job as well. She works in the bar, but she is constantly being asked out by the Judge Reinhold character, but obviously she has a thing for Billy.
Yeah. And if I can briefly nitpick, given what happens to the likes of Mrs. Deagle and the next door neighbour and
the Futtermans,
and the police people, who of course go, don't be silly, kid, there aren't any gremlins, are you drunk? Go home, have a Merry Christmas. And then Judd, I don't know if I blinked, but I was expecting Judge Reinhold to get his comeuppance or something, but you never see him again.
No, I would have liked to have seen more Judge Reinhold in this film, given the fact that this was literally 2 years after both Phoebe Cates and Judge Reinhold were in Fast Times at Ridgemount High, in one of probably the most famous nude scenes of the 1980s, which they both share.
Right.
So you can Google that anytime you like. But I like the relationship between Billy and Kate. I think it's a really sweet one. But I do have to nitpick. I know it's going to spoil the movie. One part of the movie I think was totally unnecessary, and they should have never done it, was Kate's backstory as to
why she doesn't like Christmas.
Yes.
Well, the movie was getting pretty dark.
Even Gizmo reacted like...
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Yes. He didn't know if he was sad or anything like that, but I kind of thought it just seemed a bit pointless.
There is a darkly vicious, humorous streak running through the movie at that point, but maybe it is killing a bit of time before we had to have something happen as a pause before we get to the next run over here thing. But
if I was an editor or whatever, I think I'd cut that bit out. It's not needed. It's just 2 minutes. It's just, you know, it's not important to the movie. You didn't need to know that about Kate, because Kate was likeable. She didn't seem like she had a bug up her ass or anything like that, apart from the one bit where they were talking about Christmas.
I don't celebrate. Why don't you celebrate Christmas?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you don't give someone a hard time because they don't celebrate Columbus Day or something like that. You know what I mean? But no, you've got that. What about Hoyt Axton, the actor who plays Randall Peltzer, who happens to also be not only an actor, but he was a famous musician as well, country and western singer. What do you think of him?
Well, he's got the country drawl, I suppose. Yeah,
I think he's very likeable.
Yeah,
both him and the mother. I'm not sure who the mother's name is, but you know, I think that they seem a really nice family.
A loving family, yes.
Perfect house.
So that you care for them when the eggs hatch.
Yes, which is quite amazing special effects, but we'll get onto that afterwards. Yeah. How about we talk about the neighbours, the Futtermans, played by Dick Miller and Jackie Joseph. Now, the reason why I say both of them is, did you know that both Dick Miller and Jackie Joseph are in the 1960 Roger Corman movie, Little Shop of Horrors, although they're not contrasting characters, because Dick Miller plays the customer who likes to eat flowers, and Jackie Joseph plays Audrey, who is named, you know, for the Venus flytrap.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the Futtermans?
As next door neighbour sitcom-y characters, they fulfilled their parts. I did get a chuckle out of that's because it's a foreign car. If you'd bought an American car, it wouldn't have...
That's his whole thing, isn't it, Murray, the Futterman? It's always the, oh, damn foreign TV or whatever. If we'd bought American, this wouldn't happen and stuff like that. And he's always going on about Gremlins as well, because he happens to be drinking at the bar regularly. He's like, I saw Gremlins, you know, and stuff like that.
That's where the title comes in.
Yes. But no, I thought they were really good. What about Corey Feldman? This was the same year that Corey Feldman played in Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter.
Right.
Which he played Tommy Jarvis. What did you think of his performance in this?
As a kid, he stayed on the right side of likeable.
Yeah. And finally, I'll throw this.
Probably because he's not in it that much.
No, he's not. He's in it enough to not be annoying.
Yeah.
And then we've got two more characters. One which I think is kind of a bizarre one, which is Mr. Hanson, who is the school. I think he is the school scientist teacher.
He's the science teacher who they go to for sciencey test explanations. It's a small town because you can't really go anywhere else.
Why would Billy take him to the school rather than a proper scientist, just a school scientist?
Because it's a small town. They probably don't have a large hospital or science centre. Where else are you going to go? Also, he trusts his old science teacher.
Yeah, and he's not exactly smart, is he, when he's leaving food around for the gremlin to snatch or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But one blink and you'll miss it moment, although it's not really a blink and miss it, but did you know that fans of Breaking Bad out there, you have the sheriff and his deputy. Yeah. Now the deputy, who's called Brent Fryer, who's played by another actor who would appear in Beverly Hills Cop, is played by Jonathan Banks, who is famous for playing Mike Ehrmantraut in Breaking Bad. So I don't know if you recognised him from any other films. He's been in lots of movies.
I recognise the name Jonathan Banks.
Yeah. So I thought I'd throw that out there. But let's get on to Gizmo and the voice of Gizmo. Did you know that the voice of Gizmo was done by Howie Mandel, who is now famous for being a judge on America's Got Talent?
Yeah, funny how things work out, isn't it?
What do you think of Gizmo as a special effects, monster? It's so cute.
He is adorable. You can see why he'd be enticing for Randall and everyone else, and the not just Gizmo, but the other gremlins as well. If I can encompass this, of course the animatronics work in this movie. The movements, the limbs, the expressions, the actions that all the creatures do is astonishing.
Yeah, they do a great job. I mean, I like the Stripe Gremlin. I think he's the
chief,
perfect bad guy.
The chief nasty gremlin, yes.
Yes, I think he's an amazing character. It's even like the moment when you see him for the first time that he does something that straight away you think, oh, why do that? Which is that Gizmo's playing with like a little trumpet underneath the Christmas tree, and then you see Stripe up the top of the table go spits at him and the dog, and both Gizmo and the dog are looking at each other and going,
Yeah, because he's just multiplied. Got multiple gremlins. That's not so bad. And Randall's in going, this is our breakthrough. The pelt's a pet. But then he does that. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, they're going to be nasty, aren't they?
And what about the scene when poor Barney, who's the name of the dog, poor Barney is tied up to Christmas lights by the gremlins?
Yeah.
How the hell did they lift the dog up that high? And they're only little.
Well, we don't know their strength, do they?
This is one of those continuity things that we, as looking back on things, will always nitpick on things like that. But no, regarding the special effects that you were talking about, they were designed by a guy called Chris Wallace. Now, I don't really know much of his work, but I think the puppets are outstanding. I think they've done a great job with it. And even the moments where you see all the gremlins, I wonder how long it took to make all of those gremlins, because there are so many characters.
Whether it was them gathering in the streets like that, or when our hero and heroine are running away from the cinema and you can see the gremlins, the shadows, the silhouettes of them come up behind the projector screen just before they rip it apart. That was a real whack. That was a real pause for a moment. Wow.
Yeah, and you had like when they're in the bar, they've got characters like there's a woman gremlin, who's like the mole, you know, like a classic 1930s gangster mole, and you've got one who's like a jazz kind of guy who's like, and then all of a sudden one of these gremlins comes up with like sock puppets going like that.
That is a prolonged Warner Brothers moment. I said this on a previous episode, but again, it's Joe Dante really gets Looney Tunes humour, doesn't he? How characters would interact and behave and look and express themselves. And you see that in all the gremlins. Like you say, there's the gangster, the jazz one, the smoking one, the drinking one, the flash dance one.
Yeah, the flasher. Isn't there a flasher gremlin as well?
Yes, and the one that's copying the dance from Flashdance.
Yes, that was funny, to a song by Michael Sembello, who actually has a song from Flashdance as well. So, but did you like that? The little Easter eggs that were in there, like there was the E.T. bit as well, the little E.T. puppet that Stripe was hiding behind and stuff like that. You know, but and the fact that they went in the theatre, the movie that was showing in the cinema happened to be Disney's first ever animated movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Of all the movies that they could watch, they liked that one.
Well, because they're gremlins that make very basic squeaking noises, so they can go hi ho, hi ho. It's off to work we go.
It's funny some of the words that they can actually say, because like even Stripe is the bit where he's reading the sign. He's like Deagle, 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 Deagle,
Deagle, candy.
Yeah, that they understand the English language.
Billy.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's so sweet with Gizmo at the end, like bye Billy.
Bye bye Billy.
It's a real classic movie, and I know we can nitpick films all the time with like little twists and plots here and there, but I for one think it's outstanding. I think it's again one of the greatest 80s movies. I think it's a Christmas classic. I know that a lot of people out there will say, what, compared to Die Hard or It's a Wonderful Life or whatever. I think Gremlins stands out.
Yeah, it's a funny thing about the 80s. Maybe it's the 80s and that was when Spielberg was in his prime, but it's amazing given, can you call this a horror movie? It's a family-friendly horror movie. And the soundtrack probably helps, but it's so whimsical.
Yeah, lovely Jerry Goldsmith score, typical Spielberg collaborator. Can I throw it out there briefly, as we haven't really touched on Joe Dante, which is that I think the reason why Joe Dante got this job is from one of our previous episodes on What Did You Think? He had worked with Steven Spielberg on the 1983 movie Twilight Zone, the movie, in which he produced the remake of It's a Good Life, in which the special effects by Rob Bottin were outstanding, and that's why I had to actually Google to see who did the special effects, because I thought Rob Bottin would have done these, but clearly he was doing other films. But no, Joe Dante is a master of filmmaking, and I'm so glad that he got to do the Looney Tunes movie years later.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of worked backwards from that. I don't know if I saw the Looney Tunes movie first, but now seeing these in context makes you go, you were going to make a Looney Tunes movie eventually, because you're so perfect for it. You get the tone, you get the humour of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck.
It's kind of a shame that someone like him didn't actually helm the Who Framed Roger Rabbit movie, given that that might have been a better fit than Zemeckis. But
almost, but it's still a brilliant movie.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking that if there was an opportunity for a director to do the Looney Tunes, this would have been a great audition.
Yeah.
So, as we said, with Gremlins, it has a huge legacy, albeit 6 years later, the sequel came out, which was Gremlins 2, The New Batch, which, like I say, we are not covering that on this episode today, as it's not really Christmassy. And have you got mixed feelings on that movie? Because I kind of have a little.
I've only watched about half of it.
Yeah.
My only memories of that are Hulk Hogan standing up from his seat going, "Well, brother, you better turn the movie back on," and just made me feel, wow, this really is a product of its time.
Well, apparently that's what happened in the cinemas when they did it, and apparently the VHS had a slightly different version. So the VHS one apparently did changing of the channels.
Yeah, but you could tell that's the kind of movie it was, because it got Hulk Hogan in it.
Yes, couldn't be any more 1990 than that.
No.
But no, Gremlins is a great movie, and I'm glad that we managed to check it out for the channel eventually. I may be incorrect here, but I believe a very famous streaming service have acquired the rights to make a Gremlins cartoon series, I think.
I want to say it's a bit late for something like that.
I know, but given the nostalgia that particular streaming service has with a show called Stranger Things, it's possible that they want to continue this running theme of 80s things.
Yeah, because we are living in an age where we'll try and get anything that will make money.
Yes.
You know, you'll watch this because it's a name you recognise, so it'll be good, right? Right? Well, please say yes.
Well, this comes at a time that the Critters franchise has just recently been rebooted.
Oh, so, yeah, that's the unfortunate legacy of Gremlins, that it spawned so many funny little creatures killing people. Troll, yeah.
And the one we just said, which
Critters,
was Critters, and lots of other
Ghoulies,
Munchies. I think there's one as well.
Hobgoblins.
Yeah, there's lots out there.
What do you do with those hobgoblins?
I don't even know that one. That must be a really, really obscure B movie.
I'll explain later.
But if you like Troll 2 or whatever, then you've got Gremlins to thank for that.
Yeah.
So if you don't, then you're going to be like, oh my god!
Can you crash zoom on your face there?
Yes.
Never mind. We don't have a little fly that can crawl across your face while you're saying that, do we? Okay.
But no, unlike those movies, these Gremlins are kind of, they have more characters, whereas you know, the other ones are just a group of them. There's no particular standout characters. Gizmo, Stripe, and some of the characters that come later on in their costumes, like, as we said, like the gangster mole, black character, or a jazzy one, you know, that sort of thing. And they took it to extreme levels when they did the sequel, with the fact that there's a talking gremlin in that one. Which, again, didn't really stand out for me.
You had to try and stretch this out somehow, so.
But the fact that the sequel
couldn't just have them make funny noises all the time.
But the fact that the sequel didn't feature the parents in it, but it featured, you know, Billy and Kate from the original, But it also featured the Futtermans, who we assumed were dead because they were getting attacked by the gremlins in their own house. But then you've also got Christopher Lee, which is outstanding to get him in it. And you've also got, I'm trying to think of the other actors that are in that movie. John Glover, who I think is great in pretty much anything he does. John Glover, if you know, was in another Christmas classic, Scrooged, with Bill Murray, which I like a lot. So, you know, hopefully that could potentially be next year's Christmas one. You never know.
You have to start thinking about that.
Yeah, or I might start going in the dark way again, like we've been doing with these horror Christmassy movies. Maybe Krampus or something like that. Who knows? But anything else you want to sum up about Gremlins?
Well, looking at the reviews this got back in the day, there is one that said it starts out as It's a Wonderful Life, and then by the second half, once the carnage starts, it turns into The Blob. And wow, thank you, Leonard Maltin. I could not have put that any better myself.
I'd love to know what Siskel and Ebert said about it. I assume
they liked it. I think I'd have to look at it again.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, I'm a real big fan of Siskel and Ebert. That's why I like to base this show on, and I think that they would have probably got a kick out of this.
But yeah, it manages. I don't want to repeat myself, but it's a horror movie. It gets the sinister, ominous feeling of, oh no, you've got water on them. Oh no, there are eggs hatching with the dramatic lighting. Oh no, what's going to happen?
Well, the fact that it's real practical effects is fantastic.
Yeah, and yet it's something you can, especially these days. Perhaps I know there's things like putting gremlins in the microwave or putting them in the blender that got some controversy back in the day, I believe. But these days, you could show your kids this movie, and your conscience would be mostly clear.
But what is the message of Gremlins after all? A gremlin is for life, not just for Christmas.
You remember that, kids. If you adopt a furry little thing,
that's what I took out of it.
Yeah, be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whimsical, charming Christmas movie that happens to have homicidal, bloodthirsty creatures in it.
Yes.
And the music, the anarchic, Bugs Bunny-esque tone that Joe Dante goes, it all works. It all comes together. The characters, the script, it all comes together.
This is why this Back to the Future, if you were just to watch the first ones, the fact they were made in quick succession, you could have a movie night of like Gremlins followed by Back to the Future, and you feel like you're in the same community, albeit different characters and different sort of layout, but the two towns look identical, so it kind of feels like it's the same universe.
Yeah, weird that.
Yeah. So I suppose that's really all we can talk about.
I think,
Gremlins.
yeah, it's good.
Yes.
If you haven't heard that in the past, what's it, for 45, 35 years?
35 years.
If you haven't heard that in the past, but yes, go watch it.
Yes. So thank you everybody out there for watching this review of What Did You Think, and it's a Christmas special. So if you want to see checking out more videos on the channel, we've got solo videos that I do. We have more What Did You Thinks that we've got. We've got some other shows potentially in the near future. We've got Andrew's cinema reviews on his show At the Movies with Andrew. I would like to say on behalf of the pair of us, but I think we're best to do it individually. But I'd like Andrew to do a closing statement briefly from the movie, one of your favourite lines, and we will then do our closing bit together.
So remember, if your washing machine is on the fritz or your TV blows up, don't call the repairman. Turn on all the lights. Check under your beds and in your wardrobe, 'cause you never know. There might just be a gremlin in your house.
Wow. So, on behalf of myself, I'm going to say this, which is we wish our viewers here a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we look forward to seeing you in the year 2020. Would you like to add any more to this?
Be nice to your family. Try and eat as much of the dinner as you can. Hope you got what you wanted, and see you next decade.
Yes. So see you all then. All the very best.